Imagine wearing 2 pairs of shorts every time you run, every time you exercise, every time you play ball, every time you do anything active. As someone that sweats a lot, I can't imagine the amount of heat that would produce. But the legendary Michael Jordan, he would do exactly that every time he played for the Bulls. And the story goes, Michael Jordan would wear his UNC shorts from his college days under his Chicago Bulls shorts for every game. And this time, Jordan Brand has taken MJ's superstition and turned it into the inspiration behind a pack of 2 shoes, one of which that I was able to get. Jordan Airship PE, every game, Dune Red. Now the Airship, if you didn't know, it does have a pretty cool mystical story behind it. So Nike, for the longest time, they've been marketing the Air Jordan 1 as the shoe that was originally banned from the NBA, and they were so rebellious, they were so against the man, against the corporation, that they just went ahead and made Michael Jordan wear the shoe anyway. Now the colorway that was actually banned was the black and red Chicago colorway, commonly referred to as bread nowadays. However, back in the day, the NBA required all the shoes to have a certain amount of white. That shoe obviously didn't meet the criteria. Michael Jordan was going to be fined $5,000 every time he wore that shoe. However, Nike said the marketing, the advertising, the story behind it was worth it. They actually paid the fines every game, and this Air Jordan 1 banned story kind of came to life. Now that's the story they want you to believe, but there's still a bit of fiction in that story. The shoe that was actually banned was the Airship. And the reason behind that was when Michael Jordan signed with Nike in 1984, the Air Jordan 1 wasn't ready yet, so they had to give him another shoe. So unofficially, this was his actual first signature shoe, the Airship. And for the first half or quarter of the 1984 season, this was the shoe that he actually wore. For the longest time, Nike tried to ignore that. It was just like a rumor out there. But in like 2015, 20-something, they finally tweeted a photo of MJ wearing the Airship. And it wasn't until I think it was 2020 when they first actually sold the Airship to the general public and then basically confirmed that story. But even now, this whole Air Jordan 1 ban story still lives on. The recent movie Air with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, where it talks about how Michael Jordan signed with Nike in 1984. At the end of that movie, they still say that the Air Jordan 1 was banned by the NBA and it was still like this rebellious attitude that they try to portray. They never mention the airships. Just kind of ignore it. Now the Airship PE every game, this shoe was part of a pack of 2 shoes, this one and another one with the UNC colorway with the materials reversed. Now I really wanted that shoe. I think most people did. That shoe sold out super quick. Obviously I didn't get it, so I kind of just went for a consolation prize. Now I will be honest, I've never been interested in the airships. For some reason, in the images, it just doesn't look like a very compelling shoe to me. It just looks kind of weird. But in hand, I know it's very corny and generic to say they look better in hand, but in hand, seriously, it looks so nice. It's such a vintage, classic, retro kind of look to it. I really like it. Now this shoe dropped on May 10th for $150. I can't remember if this actually ever went on sale on sneakers or Nike.com. Maybe, I can't remember. I feel like it's one of those shoes that was only on sale in retail stores or select shops. If you remember, if you know, definitely drop in the comments below. Now in my previous video about the Air Jordan 6 Toro Bravo, I talked about how much I love red shoes. I don't know why, just really like that color. And this colorway, even though it's not fully red, it's just it's flaming. It's just so nice. Love it. Now the upper sole, the images of the shoe might look pretty white. It is a more off-white. Officially, Nike calls it Summit White, so it's not exactly white. So the upper sole of the shoe is essentially the reverse of the UNC pair. So the UNC pair, the base layer was leather, but on this shoe, the base layer comes in suede. It's pretty nice suede. I don't think it's the best. Still think the Air Max 1 Ugly Duckling suede on that shoe is pretty much perfect, premium. Wish it would have came with that type of suede, but at this price point, especially Jordan Brand nowadays, can't expect that for every shoe. Still pretty nice suede. And the red overlays comes in leather with that cracked aesthetic. And the leather, I will say, does feel very nice, very soft. I like that. And the most distinct feature about the shoe, undoubtedly, it is the heel. The booty of the shoe has every game stitched on the back. Obviously referencing how MJ wore his UNC shorts every game under his Chicago Bulls shorts. And I actually really like that font. I really like that cursive type script font. Now I didn't grow up in the US. I've lived here for a while now, but didn't do my school in the US. But I recently learned, apparently in the US, you grow up here, you have to learn cursive, which I know a lot of people complain about because it's not used much anymore. but I think that's cool. I just like the way cursive looks, like that script font. So elegant, so classy. I'm a big fan. I will say though, I don't know if both shoes needed to have every game on the heel. I feel like maybe one shoe says every, another says game. That would have been enough. I think every game on both shoes, maybe just a bit too much. Maybe one shoe didn't need to have anything on it. And this shoe, just like the Air Jordan 1, it does have a rubber cup sole with a polyurethane encapsulated Nike Air unit in the heel. And the book that comes with the shoe actually lays this out in detail, so you can actually check for yourself. Now you see this pattern on the sail creamy midsole. Very, very apparent. I've been complaining about the use or overuse of sail in 2023. I think it's played out, but for some reason, just everything about this shoe just plays into that pre-aged aesthetic really, really well. That vintage look. It is a very vintage shoe. It just kind of goes together really, really perfectly. So I don't mind the sail on this shoe. And speaking of the vintage look, you see that distinctly on the outsole. Looks just like a Jordan 1 outsole, but obviously with that vintage kind of pre-aged look. There's like this marble kind of pattern to give it this dusty type of vibe. Really, really like that. Now the tongue of the shoe is pretty standard, comes with that creamy, almost pink color with a Nike Air tag on the top. I'm glad they didn't use that Nike Air tag from the recent Air Jordan 1 Next Chapter. That has like an extra white part that I don't get why they added. It's just like a standard plain Nike Air tag on the tongue. And now moving on to the inside of the shoe. The padding on the ankle collar, really, really nice. Really squishy, really soft. Now I love that detail where they printed the size of this shoe on the ankle collar. More on sizing later. I do want to though, when women get this shoe, whether or not they print the sizing in men's or women's, for a lot of Jordan 2s on the outsole, they'll print the size on the outsole. However, when it's a women's exclusive, for whatever reason, they miss the details, they still print it in men's sizing. So if you're a lady and you're watching this, and you happen to get this shoe, let me know what size they printed on the ankle collar. Now this shoe does come with extra laces in that summer white color to match the rest of the upper sole. It's kind of funny how at this price point, they'll throw in extra laces, but for Jordans that are like $200, $210, they'll give you nothing. I don't get it. I don't get the logic. I don't get the reasoning. I don't get how they decide when to put extra laces in, but it is what it is. However, with that said, I don't think I would opt for any other color laces than the default red. I think 90% of the time, I just go with whatever the designer puts on the shoe in the first place. I'm not the most creative or most out there person in terms of the things I wear, so I just usually go with the default, unless it's like super obvious. Like the Jordan 5 clot lows, they came with default red laces, which were just too Christmassy. I had to change those to black. That was an obvious one for me, but this shoe, I think the default red looks really, really nice. Box of the shoe, very standard Nike box. However, it does come with that summit white, off-white kind of color. Again, I've been complaining a lot this year about pre-aged or sale kind of color and aesthetic. But this shoe, the way it's executed, I think it just does it really well. There's a lot of features on the shoe, like the cracked leather, like the outsole, like the midsole. They really play into the theme. So when it all ties together, I don't have a problem with it. It's when they use sail randomly on a pair of shoes that's not supposed to give off that vibe, but they just had to go with sail anyway. That's when I complain about this type of like sail, creamy white, off-white color. Now moving on to size and comfort, I'm a size 9.5 true to size. I do have wide feet, but I had to go up half a size to size 10 because this was the only size that was left. So unfortunately, this does come a bit loose, even though I have wide feet. There's a bit too much length to this shoe. Not really a big deal breaker. I always say you'd rather have a shoe that's slightly looser than too tight. You can just like wear thicker socks or double up on socks and kind of solve the problem. So if you're a wide footer, definitely recommend just wearing whatever size you would for a Jordan 1. If you haven't owned a Jordan 1 before, recommend going true to size. It does feel like a Jordan 1, unfortunately. Nike Air unit on the heel, barely feel it. It has a very flat feel to it, almost like you're wearing it directly on the ground. Now usually I don't mind flat shoes because it's better for my back, better for my knees. However, the Jordan 1 in this shoe, it just feels really flat. And that's actually what Michael Jordan preferred. He specifically asked Nike to make a shoe where he could feel the court more closely. That's just what he wanted, so I guess blame MJ for these flat feeling shoes. I will say the padding inside, even for the Jordan 1s, it's always been pretty nice, especially the ankle collar. This always feels good. Now that brings the total sole score to 18 out of 25, right around the middle of all the shoes that I've reviewed. Colorway wise, like I said at the start, love it. So clean, so simple, just there's nothing I would change about this colorway. Material wise, the leather I really liked. I think the suede is nice, but I think there's better suede out there. It's not the best. Can't really expect too much at a price of $150, but Definitely some room for improvement. Comfort wise, fits like a Jordan 1, feels flat, padding inside is nice, but flat, minimal cushioning, not the most comfortable shoe. Versatility wise, because this is my first airship, I really had to think about it for a bit. This is like one of the most versatile silhouettes, one of the most versatile sneakers, in my opinion. The silhouette is so clean, so simple, especially now with the whole vintage retro look coming back. I think this is a very versatile shoe, and the colorway itself doesn't get more simple, doesn't get more versatile than this. White, or I guess off-white and red shoe, can't really beat that in terms of versatility. Storytelling wise, I think it's pretty cool. It's a pretty distinct story, the inspiration behind the shoe. If you do your research, if you watch this video, you'll know exactly what every game refers to. There's a lot of shoes where there's details on the shoe. We have no idea what it's talking about, like the Air Jordan 2 responsibilities. Don't get me started with that shoe. But at least for this shoe, you know exactly where it's drawing inspiration from. One thing I will say, where there's room for improvement, even though I don't mind the box, that off-white kind of creamy box, they could have done something really more special with the box itself. Even though I got the shoe on a whim and I wanted the other shoe as part of this pack, I don't have any regrets. I'm glad my impulse won that time. As someone that's never owned another airship and wasn't too impressed with the silhouette overall, just judging from images, I'm glad I got this shoe. As generic and corny as it sounds, this shoe is just really, really clean. And getting this shoe has just opened up another silhouette that I can explore, that I can look out for. Definitely going to look out for future airships, especially in colorways that I really, really like. So that's it. Thanks for watching Soul Inclined. Like, subscribe, comment, let me know what you think of the Jordan Airship PE Dune Red. And remember, tomorrow may never come, so wear your shoes.